Periscope. I'm not very familiar with certain things. I'm a little newbie on some level, not to social media, but so it's not very hard actually to identify. Yes, to identify some of the things that like certain icons and certain little features of Instagram. But yeah, it's my first video, and I'm hoping that today I'll be able to get share a few things and get more people involved in some of the things that I believe need to be done at this time in our communities. No, I have been sharing for quite some time now several things as it relates to, my what I call my 74 plan or 78 plans. Those are for community engagement and for community building and community relations. And these plans are generally stuff that are connected to the to my One New Man or One New Humanity project. But they are things that I'm actually hoping that more persons in the community would become very involved or get very active in. Some of the things that I've been sharing with a special group of persons because these are mainly ministries that I believe in terms of their involvement in the community over the years has been good, and it's something that I generally would share with them from a premise of prayer. It's many times a thing where it is that when it is that there are certain things that are going on in our communities, the first things we really need to be doing is praying. Oh, as I even think about it, recently my prayer time has not been like it should, but prayer is a very vital and important part of our day-to-day lives and day-to-day activities. It should be, because no one can know how to address certain situations like God, and we need his leading in every area and facet of our lives. We need his leading at all times so that we can be able to accomplish the things that he set us here for. God didn't only want a family when it is that he created the earth realm. He also wanted people who were created in his image and were becoming progressively like him. But the thing is that we didn't have to become like him so much. The thing is that originally Adam was functioning in various respects like God, but he was not like a Jesus who came into the earth realm and had to go through the stages and levels and develop in various different ways, so that like Jesus he would have learnt obedience. But Adam was sort of kind of created big, so he didn't go through the stages and levels of learning certain things and being in a certain kind of state. So Jesus modeled for us a perfect example of what God is looking for when he thinks of a family, or when he thinks of us as sons and daughters, or when he offers us sonship. Because most people, it's a situation where most people are functioning from a premise of a created being. They're created in the likeness and image of God, but not everybody has accepted sonship. And that's where the system of grace comes into play. God did not give us a sinful nature, but sin, when it entered into the world, it actually separated us from God. And so therefore God had to do a perfect work through Jesus Christ, so as to actually enable us to become, like God, to become like him. So Christ became the bridge between us and God, and Christ also modeled for us how we are to be how we are to be developing. Now, one of my passion right now, for quite some time now, one of the things I'm passionate about is people developing as spiritual beings, and that's one of the premise upon which the One New Man or One New Humanity project is based. It's generally based on God's dream of one new humanity that he has made available through Jesus Christ. No, no, as I look at some of our community issues, like over the past several years, there have been several things that have been happening, and I'm very much, I've always been interested in the state of, hurting families. I've always been interested in the progression of people, moving towards their purpose and their God-given destinies. I've been very much interested in better relations among our communities locally and globally. I've been very much interested in several different things, and for years, especially since like say 2013, 2014, I've been very active. Not only, and even before that, I've been very active in in different efforts to build communities locally and globally. I've been involved, not just involved, but I have like started move like the Pressing Past Pain movement. From 2014 I started the Pressing Past Pain movement. That one was in place. It was there for helping with the relations in our community. The basis on which the Pressing Past Pain movement was developed was one where it is that it was a respect for life movement, and it was one that was there to encourage people to love God, love their neighbors as themselves, and teach offenders, encourage offenders to do the same. So it would help offenders to do the same. And so, while it is that the Pressing Past Pain movement did not do as much as it was set out to do, the thing is that the movement still is there to help other persons in several respects. We still have the Pressing Past Pain program that is there to help with the healing in a community, help with the physical, the social, the relational healing, whether among families in the communities or the community on a whole or the global community, because it's as a movement that spanned local and global. It's an international movement kind of thing. It's something that was there generally to help with people going through painful periods or experiences and so on. And it also was there to help to encourage people to support and commit to the respect for life, respect for God, respect for self, respect for each other, respect for environment, so on and so forth. So so that's one of the things, one of the efforts that I was working on and so on, and it was something that I was encouraging other people to get involved with and to get active in. But as per today I generally want um, to share share with the community some of the efforts that I have, I've been desirous of, some of my plans and some of the desires that I've been having with regards to the community. And I would love for a situation wherein, yeah, I would love for a situation wherein, persons get very much involved in the different aspects of the effort, the different aspects of um these list of things that I would like seeing happening. Currently, first and foremost, I've been working on a book. I'm an author as well. So I've been writing books over the past several years. I have written Pressing Past Pain Lessons Learned, which was first written in 2013. or first available in 2013. But because of the fact that at the time when I wrote Pressing Past Pain, Lessons Learned, there were things that I was still unsure of, and I needed to learn certain things and so on. I ended up having a situation wherein I had to update the book like afterwards, because some of what I was believing was the case when I wrote chapter 2, it was a situation wherein it was not really that was not really the case. Anyways, or it's not that it wasn't the case, it was just more a situation wherein certain things needed to be updated. The information was somewhat flawed, except for the recounts, the information I shared with regards to what happened to me. That was true, but some of the beliefs surrounding the information needed updating. It needed some clarification and so on. So yeah, so now I have recently written another one. Well, not recently. I started one in 2014 called "Are You Submitting to Outlaws?" which addressed several things that we've been seeing happening in our communities. It addresses several things in our community from a spiritual standpoint, but it more was generally based. Okay, so it addresses, for example, it addresses fear, doubt, unbelief, lust, lust for sex, money, possessions, and it addresses hate and murder and so on. And it looks at trying to encourage people to move beyond what has been hindering them from, the attitudes that has been hindering them from progressively moving forward towards their God-given destinies and so on. So it's a situation wherein, the book, while it was written from a spiritual standpoint to help to address attitudes and so on, it is one that is very much relevant to some of the things that I want to see in terms of one of the chapters of the book speaks of, which is the last chapter. It speaks of having a paradigm shift. Everybody is very familiar with the terminology paradigm shift, because over the years I've been hearing a lot of people talking with regards to it and so on. And yes, so I'm presuming that most people have a general idea of what that is, but it's really, generally moving from one way or of certain kind of world viewpoint, or moving from a certain kind of worldview to another type of worldview. So yeah, I would love a situation wherein once people have read the Are You Submitting to Outlaws book, which is this book. See right here. Okay, so once it is that people have read Are You Submitting to Outlaws, I'm hoping that it's a situation where they begin to progressively move in, in a positive direction in terms of, they're generally looking at where it is that they themselves have been, and looking at progressively moving towards betterment in the community, or working with others towards building the community, not just relationally, but in every aspect of the word, and also teaching offenders to do the same. Just like in the Pressing Past Pain movement, I'm still very much interested in encouraging persons to commit to moving progressively towards betterment in the community, and also working in ways to teach offenders, to help offenders to also do the same, because our communities will only thrive when it is that people are progressively looking at areas of the community that need to be addressed, and they're putting their hearts into it. So they're not just looking at the issues and so on, constantly talking about it, but also progressively doing things that will help the situation to be better. And that's therein is my to-do list for the community. Um, so I'm going to be sharing with you a list of things that some of the things I'm going to be discussing, some of the things that I would like to see happen in the communities, and how I would like also for persons to get involved and so on. The thing is that one of the areas, as I was saying earlier before, prayer is a vital part. So even if it is that some people are not actually able to assist in some respects, which I mean, as it relates to community efforts and so on, everybody is able to do something. Something. There are various different efforts, various different things out there. People can volunteer to do different stuff. If it is that people are not able to help like physically help, whether it be labor support, or it be financial support, or it be relational support, or it be spiritual support in terms of praying and doing various different things from a spiritual standpoint, then there are several ways in which people can support, people can give, people can, not, you don't have to, it's not a situation people that can only give just finances and so on. It's like finances, I mean, money is an answer, just as the Bible says, money is an answer to all things. But the situation is that money is not the only thing that people can give. It is better to give money because money can provide you with opportunities for various different stuff. But if it is that people want to also give other things, like whatever valuables they have, and they know that it would be valuable to other persons, when there are opportunities for giving those things, yeah, continue to do so. So for example, if there are like Christmas efforts going on in the community, try as much as possible to give some support to those kinds of stuff. There are a lot of less fortunate children and families still all across the world that are needing a lot of help. There are people in Africa, for example, who have been practically on the verge of starvation, or have been going through periods of malnutrition and so on. There's several things that can be addressed in our local and global community, and everybody can put their hand and heart towards addressing some of these things, amidst the fact that most people have been hurting in several ways and so on, because of certain attitudes and certain traditional systems and certain issues that span decades upon decades or centuries even. The situation is that amidst the fact that we've had the racial issues, the religious issues, the abortion situation, we've had the you know we've had the political issues, we've had several different types of issues in the communities, locally and globally. And the thing is that though it is that we've had all these different issues and so on, it still doesn't take away from our responsibility, because each person is responsible for certain aspects of stuff that happen in the earth realm. God, if it is that God has just given you an area, your domain is just your home and your community, or certain aspects of your community, function in that. Be a good steward over whatever it is that God has given you oversight of. Whenever it is that I normally pray over all those God has given me oversight of. And because of the kind of purpose that I have been discovering, as it relates to my life, it's a situation wherein I recognize that my purpose, my domain, or the area that I'm given oversight of, has been a wide cross section of people. And so therefore I've always tried to at least first and foremost pray for those who I'm given oversight of, and then also try to do things so as to help to take care of them, help to bless them, help to empower them, help to equip them, help to inspire, encourage, and so on and so forth. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, to do, similar. Right now, there are certain needs that our families are having, or our families need. And if it is some things are not, if it is that we don't address some things will not be addressed. So, yeah. So, let me get on now with the list of things that I am desirous of people getting involved in and assisting with. Okay, so as I said before, there are many who have been hurting, and I would like to see their lives being blessed and made better. So several months ago, I shared a basic blessing plan that I would like to see take effect in our communities, locally and globally. I would like assistance and support in making these things possible in our communities. So wherever it is that you're able to assist, I would appreciate it. Okay, so the plans and desires are as follows. Okay, first and foremost, I just shared with you my Are You Submitting to Outlaws book, and this is I've started a book sharing effort and fundraising effort for the One New Humanity project's first event, and the pre-show, which is supposed to be a cultural costume event that is being considered for the summer, God's willing. And along with that, I've also been looking at doing fortifying the gates of the family for the summer as well. So, there are several things that I am looking at right now, but I need financial support and labor support in getting some of these things done. So, wherever it is that persons are able to support, I'm looking forward to receiving your support. There are several things that I have engaged in over the past several years in our communities, but many times they needed, in order for them to have had a certain level of effect. They've had some level of effect, but they could have, some things could have been much better or even more successful if it was a situation where it is that I had more people present, more people giving to it and helping in various different ways, sharing it with others, doing different things to get involved and to be actively involved in it, in getting some of these things done. But though it is that some of those things were not done in certain respects, still there are a lot of things that have happened that have been positive. And the One New Humanity project, I am very grateful for the leaders and the different entities, the ministries and people who have been helping in various different respects with the project, because if it wasn't for some of these individuals, some of the things that have been accomplished would probably not have been accomplished on the level that it has been. So I thank God for you, and I pray that we'll continue to have more efforts like these, in terms of people. Not only just, it's a situation wherein I'm trying to share like a general thing in terms of what is to be happening in our communities, like from a general premise. And I'm also sharing ideas and so on, so that people have some idea as to what it is. But it's not a situation wherein I'm only looking at I'm not just looking at sharing my ideas with people just for sharing ideas. I'm looking at having people assist me, as well as to get involved and also to get actively involved in their communities, so that they're doing similar things too, that they're not only just supporting and assisting me, but they are also getting involved in different areas, and getting active, as it relates to some of the things that need to be done in their communities. I think one of the very one of the most important thing right now is healing in our communities. There are lots of families, as I said before, they have been hurting, and people need a level of healing. And in order for people to have a level of healing, there are some things that need to be done. And that's one of the reasons why I have the Pressing Past Pain program that I'm still doing. I had done a basic healing assessment at an event that I conducted a year ago. But there were not enough healing assessments done. So I may have to do a healing assessment via teleseminar or something like that. Maybe I have to do a conference call kind of healing assessment, that I would invite people to sit down and assess generally where they're at as it relates to healing. But I'm not only I'm looking at a wide cross section of things as it relates to healing. I'm not just looking at people healing in terms of just emotionally or relationally, but we want to see a wide cross section of healing, and that spans spiritual, emotional, physical, relational, communities healing, on a whole. Over the past decade, there have been several things that have been happening in our communities that could have been much better if it is that more of us were involved in making things better, like even more. Many times what I've found in the communities is a situation wherein people tend to talk a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff, but they don't do much. I don't want people to only just do. People should actually be able to talk, and also, more importantly, become or be. It is a situation wherein God gives us, for example, his thoughts, for those who listen to him. He puts his thoughts in our minds, but in putting his thoughts in our heads, his thoughts are there to progressively move us towards becoming or being like him. So when he puts his thoughts in our minds, the thought is going to bring you to an action. The action, when you continue to work, continue to do that action over a period of time, it's going to bring you to a habit. And when you continue in that habit, it's going to help to develop your character to be a certain way. And as you progressively move in being a certain way in terms of your character, it's going to lead you progressively towards your purpose, towards your destiny. Because whatever it is that you're thinking, as we all know, the process of thought, it's a situation where whatever you're thinking, it's progressively taking you somewhere. So if you're constantly entertaining certain thoughts, it's going to constantly take you in a direction towards something that you either want or don't want. So you have to be very selective of your thoughts. You have to be very sure that what you're thinking is what it is that you want to produce in your life, because your thoughts are going to produce something in your life, because that's what thoughts do. The thoughts are there to take you somewhere. So you have to be active in what it is that you receive and accept as a thought, and what you channel to other people. You have to be very very clear on what it is that you want to exit your life. So if it is that you have certain kind of thoughts and it's taking you somewhere that you're not very sure you want to go, then you should be looking at ways to throw that thought out. And you can. Some people think that whatever it is that they think sometimes is what they have to think. No, no. You have a lot of power. You are able to take thoughts out of your mind. How you do that, you have to learn to replace thoughts. Sometimes when it is that you're thinking a particular way, you can be very active in replacing thoughts. If your thoughts, if certain thoughts are constantly coming to your mind, you can deliberately choose to think on certain other things, and you can also meditate, which can take you, because when it is that you meditate, that when you learn to meditate in terms of thoughts or words or so on, when you use like affirmations and you develop a habit of doing it, so you do it over a period of time, those things is either one of two things will happen. Some affirmations, sometimes what they do is, if it is that you're not actively, doing things to replace a thought, for example, what some affirmations do is cover over, thoughts that you already have. So, that's more like a cover for it. But when it is that you're doing things to actively remove a thought, then what an affirmation or confession can do is replace it. So there are some scenarios when some people, what they're doing is covering over thoughts that they already have, or a scenario where it is that they're replacing it. So some people, if they're working with God, you can replace it. If it is that you're sometimes just doing affirmations or confessions without, or declarations without actively doing some things to rid yourself of certain thoughts, then it's a situation wherein you'll see the results over a period of time. So yeah, getting back now to the plans. So yes, as I was saying before, my personal current to do involves my Are You Submitting to Outlaws book sharing and fundraising effort for the One New Humanity projects. First, for the One New Humanity project's first event, and a pre-show that I actually wanted was the cultural costume event that is being considered for the summer, God's willing. And I wanted to start off certain things on Facebook and Instagram first, and the other event I would like to do also is fortifying the gates of the family for the summer as well. Now, recently I have been collecting records from a decade ago because I generally wanted to review those things and so on, and I've been doing that, and that is actually a good thing, because what it does, it helps me to backtrack, to look back, and where it is that I have been, and sort of kind of make steps to like closing some of the gaps between those times and now. There are some things that have, one of the things that I don't really like seeing in my life is incompletes. When it is that I have certain things that linger around, that that there's no either closure for, or a situation wherein there's no determination of whether you're going to progress in a particular direction, or certain things. When some things are unfinished, what it does, it causes different stuff to linger in your life, and I really don't like that. I like, if it is that something is going to be closed, it be closed properly. If it is that something is not going to be closed, it be reconnected and continue to develop along the lines of what it's supposed to be developing into. So sometimes looking back at the past sort of kind of gives you an appreciation of where you have been, and it takes you progressively either closer to where it is that you need to be, or something. Okay. So yeah, community efforts generally entail the basic idea for the blessing plan. Okay, so I shared a blessing plan with some individuals over the past few months. Yeah, several months, over the past several months. And there are activities that are connected to the blessing plan. So some of the local and global efforts that I want to see happening is, for example, people being blessing people, which means different ethnic groups and nations spiritually through teaching, mentoring, training them in the things of God and the supernatural. That's one of the things that I wanted to see more of, and to also do more of, because I've been helping to teach people about the supernatural and teach them about things of God and so on, and there are more things that I want to see in that regard. I want to see people being blessed physically, which means meeting their physical needs, meeting the physical needs of those in our communities locally and globally through monthly and annual fundraisers and restorative measures. But the thing is that, over the past several years, people have been accustomed, like some organizations or companies have been accustomed to doing certain things in our communities from a premise of saying, oh, they're giving back. But sometimes these efforts are just being done on a premise where it is that people are generally just giving back from a premise of oh, they have certain customers and they just want to put on this event, and so they want people to come as patrons and so on and so forth, so that they generally come to receive either entertainment or education, whether it be seminars or it be workshops or it be concerts or certain kinds of events and so on. But sometimes those families that are coming to those events have certain needs, or whether it be emotional or relational needs and so on. They have certain needs that need to be addressed even more. So it's not just a matter of not just emotional and relational, but even very importantly spiritual needs, because sometimes people are having deep pain or deep seated hurt, or they're going through different stuff, and so they need several kinds of assistance, and need several kinds of things. So I would love if it is that people, when they're putting on their events and so on, they become way much more actively involved in trying to understand who is coming to their events and some of what their needs are, so that they can generally encourage them to get connected to different efforts and so on, that are there for their help. Because, like, for example, mental situations, when it is that people have certain kind of mental challenges, or they're having certain kind of, they're going through periods of pain and so on, some of the times they need actual help, but some people have a certain kind of thought with regards to going out to get mental help, or so on and so forth. Some people have some kind of restrictions to getting counseling when they need, like, for example, they need counseling. Some people don't necessarily want to go get counseling and so on and so forth. So they need to there needs to be more efforts to helping people, like, depending on the type of events and so on. Try to get more aware of what is happening in your community in terms of with the families in the community, and try to reach out as much as possible to them, whether by helping them to look deeply into where they're at, or helping them to build, or helping them to develop, or so on and so forth. there are several efforts sometimes that are geared at our youth, for example, trying to help youth to develop and so on and so forth, and their efforts geared at families on a whole, but sometimes some of these efforts are a little too what I call shallow, you know, instead of them sometimes reaching some of the deep-seated problems or some of the deep-seated hurts that families have and so on. Some of the times it's a situation where they're just touching the surface, you know. And so I would love to see more things happening in various different parts of the nations and the world on a whole, that would actually help families in more ways than one. Okay, so yes, I also want to see, so whether it be that people are doing annual fundraisers or restorative measures are happening, I would love to see restorative measures, that are directed at families, directed at helping families on several levels, especially since the past decade, because it's a situation where like several things have been happening for the past decade, and families have been hurting in several ways. So yeah. Okay, so all right, so like yeah, I covered okay, blessing people physically. Okay, so yeah, that's one of the things that I want to see happen. Then we have blessing people financially. I want to see restorative measures where okay, so I had considered several restorative measures. I had considered several restorative measures, and I've also spoken of them before. They were considered for many that have been hurting in our communities. Yet, since many have been more focused on efforts since we started a new season. I was saying, as for the restorative measures, let them receive what God desires for them. So there are some restorative measures that I had been encouraging, and then there are some restorative measures that have actually begun to be put in place. So I was generally saying, depending on what it is that those families had chosen, whether what it is that they were gravitating towards, whether they wanted certain things to happen or they wanted to just receive, certain things like increase in terms of, whether their finances or just their general, whether it be that they were receiving, if it is, for example, they had lost a house and they were getting to get a house or something, or they lost car and they wanted a car or something, these were generally efforts to, help families wherever it is that they had been, or whatever restorative measures they were needing and so on. So I was generally saying, okay, so for those families, it's a matter of allow their needs to be met and their desires to be considered. That was one way that those families could be blessed. So looking at them in terms of financially, whether it be that some people wanted to trade, their finances for certain possessions and so on, then it would be generally up to them. But I was saying generally they needed to be blessed financially. And then you have now like persons nutritionally. Okay, so quite a bit of persons have had sicknesses and so on. Several things have been happening as it relates to illness and so on, and some of it has to do with how people are eating and how it is that they're treating their bodies. Not only sometimes are people hurting in our communities because of certain other factors, like whether it be viruses or stuff that they contract or they receive from the air or from things being around them.